Welcome back, everybody. Today we are going to talk about how airplanes stay in the air. Because honestly, if you really think about it for a second, it almost makes no sense. A machine made of metal, sometimes weighing hundreds of tons, somehow rises into the sky and flies across entire oceans. And the strangest part? Most people never think about it. We walk into an airport, sit near the window, put on headphones, and suddenly, we are 30,000 feet above the ground. But have you ever stopped and asked yourself, how is this even possible? How can something so heavy actually fly? Well, to understand that, we need to go back in time. Long before modern airplanes existed, human beings were obsessed with one dream: flying. People watched birds for thousands of years and wondered what it would feel like to leave the ground. Some people even built strange machines with giant wings, hoping they could fly like birds. Most of those experiments failed badly, very badly. But in 1903, two brothers from America changed history forever: the Wright Brothers. They were not famous scientists. They did not have massive laboratories. In fact, they owned a bicycle shop. But they were curious. And curiosity can change the world. The two brothers spent years studying birds. They watched how wings moved through the air, how angles changed, how balance worked. And finally, after many failures, they built a machine called the Wright Flyer. On a cold morning in December, their airplane lifted off the ground for 12 seconds. Just 12 seconds. But those 12 seconds changed human history forever. Because for the first time, a powered flying machine carried a human through the air. And today, more than 100 years later, millions of airplanes fly every single year. So, how do they actually stay up there? The answer begins with something invisible: air. Most people think air is nothing, but air is actually incredibly powerful, and airplanes use that power in a very clever way. The most important part of an airplane is the wing. At first glance, a wing looks simple, but its shape is carefully designed. The top of the wing is curved, the bottom is flatter. And this shape changes everything. When the airplane moves forward, air travels above and below the wing. But because the top part is curved, the air above the wing must move faster. And when air moves faster, pressure becomes lower. Meanwhile, the air below the wing moves slower, creating higher pressure underneath. And this pressure difference creates lift. Lift is the invisible force that pushes the airplane upward. In simple words, the airplane is being lifted by the air itself. But there is another problem. An airplane cannot create lift if it is standing still. It needs speed, a lot of speed. That is why airplanes have giant engines. The engines push the airplane forward at incredible speeds. As the airplane moves faster, more air flows around the wings. And eventually, there is enough lift to leave the ground. That moment during takeoff, when the wheels suddenly leave the runway, still feels magical to many people, even experienced travelers. For a few seconds, your body feels strange. Your stomach drops slightly, the ground moves away, and suddenly you are flying. But staying in the air is only part of the challenge. Pilots must also control direction, speed, balance, height, and weather. Because the sky is not always calm. Sometimes airplanes fly through turbulence. And turbulence can feel terrifying, especially for nervous passengers. But here is something important many people do not know. Airplanes are designed to survive extreme conditions. Their wings can bend far more than most people realize. In fact, during tests, engineers push airplane wings to shocking limits. The wings bend dramatically, almost looking like they could snap. But they do not break, because modern airplanes are built to handle enormous pressure. Actually, statistics show that flying is one of the safest forms of transportation in the world, far safer than driving a car. But despite all the technology, many people are still afraid of flying. And honestly, that fear makes sense. Human beings were not designed to fly naturally. Our brains still remember that falling is dangerous. So when we feel turbulence or hear strange engine noises, our instincts react immediately. But pilots hear those sounds every day. For them, most of these noises are completely normal. And modern airplanes are filled with backup systems. If one system fails, another system immediately takes over. Everything is designed around safety. And maybe that is the most fascinating part of aviation. Flying is not magic, it is science. Thousands of engineers, scientists, mechanics, and pilots working together to solve impossible problems. Every airplane in the sky represents more than technology. It represents human curiosity. The same curiosity that made the Wright brothers look at birds over 100 years ago and ask one simple question: what if humans could fly too? And today, because of that question, people can eat breakfast in London and have dinner in New York. The world became smaller because humans learned how to fly. And honestly, that is pretty incredible. Thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this story, there are many more fascinating things around us that most people never stop to think about. See you in the next video.